You grab your keys, your dog suddenly freezes, eyes locked on every move you make. That moment feels normal, but it's not. A tiny mistake right there can create anxiety every time you leave. This moment happens almost every day. So often it feels like nothing important. But for your dog, it's not routine. It's a signal they're trying to understand. If handled the wrong way, it doesn't fade, it builds, quietly, over time. Most owners never notice this happening, and once you see it, you won't leave the same way again. 1. Exercise before you leave. Have you ever noticed your dog pacing, jumping, or constantly following you right before you go out? It almost feels like they are building up energy at the exact worst moment. Most people assume their dog just needs time to calm down naturally after they leave. Some even think ignoring the behavior will make it disappear on its own. But here's the thing. What looks like excitement is often unspent physical energy mixed with anticipation stress. In the wild, dogs would naturally move, hunt, and rest in cycles. Without that release, the brain stays in a heightened state of alert. When you leave while that energy is still inside them, the brain doesn't switch off. It redirects. And that often turns into pacing, whining, or destructive behavior minutes after the door closes. A tired body is not just a calm body. It is a nervous system that finally feels safe enough to rest. 2. Create a safe zone. Have you ever seen your dog constantly returning to the same corner, bed, or even under the table when things feel uncertain? It's like they are searching for something invisible to hold on to. Most owners assume any comfortable spot in the house is enough. If the dog has food, water, and space, they should feel fine. But here's the thing. Dogs don't define safe the way humans do. They rely heavily on scent, familiarity, and emotional association with space. In nature, a den is not just a place to sleep, it is a survival anchor. So when you leave, your dog instinctively looks for something that still feels like you are there. That's why a blanket with your scent or a consistent resting area can change everything. It replaces uncertainty with familiarity. And for a dog, familiarity is the closest thing to emotional safety. 3. Control the sound environment. Have you ever noticed your dog reacting even before a sound becomes loud? A distant door slam, footsteps in the hallway, or sudden silence can shift their behavior instantly. Most people assume dogs only react to loud or obvious noises. They think background sound doesn't really matter. But here's the thing. Dogs don't hear the world like we do. They interpret sound as information about what might happen next. In the wild, unfamiliar sound often meant danger approaching. So when you leave and the house becomes unpredictable, TV on, then off, random noises, it keeps their nervous system on alert. Even silence can feel strange if it suddenly replaces your presence, and that uncertainty keeps the brain scanning for what's next instead of relaxing. A stable sound environment tells your dog one simple message. Nothing important is happening. You are safe to rest. 4. Lightly engage the environment. Have you ever seen your dog staring out the window long after you've left? It's not just boredom. It looks more like waiting. Most owners think leaving toys or open space is enough to keep their dog occupied. They assume the dog will naturally find something to do. But here's the thing. Dogs are not just looking for activity. They are looking for meaning in the environment after you disappear. In the wild, movement and change in surroundings meant life was still happening, not abandonment. That's why subtle stimulation matters. Light through a window, passing shadows, or even a slow feeder turns the environment into something alive instead of empty. When the world still feels active, your absence feels less absolute. And that small difference can reduce emotional stress more than people realize. Because for a dog, emptiness doesn't feel calm. It feels uncertain. 5. Keep the dog's brain occupied. Have you ever come home to shredded pillows, scratched doors, or scattered objects everywhere, and your dog looks exhausted, almost like they did something wrong. Most people assume this is misbehavior or revenge. They think the dog is reacting emotionally to being left alone. But here's the thing. A dog's brain doesn't like idle uncertainty. Without direction, it looks for a task, even if that task is destruction. In natural behavior, problem-solving and searching are survival tools. So when you leave, the brain shifts into find something to do mode. Puzzle toys, hidden treats, or slow feeders redirect that instinct. They don't just entertain, they replace anxiety with focus. And focus is powerful because a focused mind has less room for fear. 6. Don't turn. Leaving into a moment. Have you ever noticed your dog watching your every move when you pick up your keys? The more emotional you become, the more intense their focus gets. Most owners assume saying goodbye, hugging, or reassuring their dog helps them feel better. They think emotional farewell reduces separation stress. But here's the thing. Dogs don't understand time the way humans do. They read patterns, not explanations. So when leaving becomes a big emotional event, the brain stores it as important. And important events are worth worrying about. In the wild, heightened emotion before separation often signals something unusual is happening. So your energy becomes a warning signal without you realizing it. A calm exit sends a different message. Nothing special is happening. I will return. And that calmness becomes part of their emotional stability. 7. Train separation the right way. Have you ever noticed your dog panicking even when you just step outside for a minute? Sometimes it's not the duration, it's the meaning behind your absence. Most people assume dogs will get used to it over time if left alone often enough. Some think they will simply grow out of the anxiety. But here's the thing. Without structured training, repetition can actually reinforce fear instead of reducing it. Each stressful departure becomes another memory of uncertainty. In natural behavior, gradual exposure builds confidence. Sudden separation does the opposite. It overwhelms the system. That's why short departures, slowly increased over time, matter so much. It teaches the brain that leaving is not permanent. And just as important, how you respond when you return shapes the next departure. Calm consistency builds trust. Because in the end, separation anxiety isn't just about being alone. It's about not knowing what being alone means, looking at these patterns as a whole. One thing becomes clear. Your dog is not struggling with being alone, but with interpreting absence. Every behavior is a piece of an internal question they are constantly asking. Are things still okay? And your presence is the answer they have learned to trust. When that answer suddenly disappears, the mind doesn't go empty. It starts searching. That search is what we call anxiety, not disobedience, not confusion, just uncertainty without direction. And once you see it this way, your role changes too. You are not just managing behavior, you are shaping emotional meaning. That shift in understanding is where real connection begins. If this perspective helped you, feel free to like and subscribe for more.